Good morning, Joanna, and welcome to Business Spotlight Interview.
Good morning, Colin. Thanks for having me today.
It's great. It's great to have you. So to get started for the viewers, Joanna, maybe just give a little bit of background on yourself, describe the business that you own, how long you've been in business, etc.
All right. So I own Splatterdash Studios based out of Peachtree City, Georgia. And Splatterdash is a free play children's art center, which it's kind of unique. There's not a lot of those around. But we used to be called Bubbles and Brushes in Noonan, Georgia, and we've been open for 12 years. So we started off as Bubbles and Brushes for the first about 9 or 10 years. And then we switched, did our name change to Splatterdash, which is a little bit more fun, about 3 years ago. And so our concept is people get to walk in, they clock in at the studio, they make a big, huge mess with all of our art supplies, arts and craft supplies, and then they clock out, pay on their way out, and then we clean up the mess. So it's a very unique concept. We're open 6 days a week for people to walk in, and no reservations are required.
Excellent. Well, as a parent who had plenty of splatter in their own house and had to clean up after my kids, I can totally appreciate the value of that service.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we hear that a lot.
I'm sure you do. Excellent, excellent. So you've been at Peachtree City for 3 years. Okay. So maybe if we pull back and think big picture and how you got into this, maybe a question for you would be, when you think of success, Joanna, who's the first person that comes to mind and why?
Yeah, honestly, it's Sarah Blakely with Spanx. I just love her story and her, her drive and ambition and what she did and her mindset. And she's definitely somebody that I've been kind of following and watching and aspire to be. I just think that, she started off with such a unique concept and really just made it happen in her own way, in her own time. And so that was definitely something to aspire to. So.
Yeah, she's been a inspiration for many. She's got a great story.
She
That's
does.
a good
Yeah.
answer. So you were in PT for 3 years. How long were you in Noonan?
Yeah, so we were in Noonan about 9 or 10 years, and we jumped locations. It's kind of, I also have kind of a funny origin story. I started off as an elementary art teacher, and then I got married and had my 2 kids, and they were babies at the time. And my husband said, well, why don't you just teach an art class out of your basement? And so the basement turned into the first studio. And so that was back in 2011, I think February 4th, 2011. And it just exploded. People just kept coming. At first, I was doing art classes, and then the kids were like, no, we just want to play with their supplies. And so I just opened the door for people to come play with my art stuff. And that's kind of how the concept was born. And the subdivision HOA called me and said, the traffic on your street is getting out of hand,
Oh,
and
wow.
you need to get a brick and mortar. And so I turned to my husband and I said, I think we may be onto something here. So we were in the studio for about 9 or 10 months. And then 2012, we had our first brick and mortar. And within a year and a half, we grew out of that. And then we went straight to Ashley Park, which is a really big shopping center. We were right next to, right down a few shops down from Barnes and Noble, which was huge for us. And we were there for 5 years. And then we switched to another location and then finally came to Peachtree City. So.
Wow, that's a really cool journey. So you didn't have this grand vision or goal to open this. It kind of just grew out of organic demand, right? Which is a perfect test for the market.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it was very much a learning experience, kind of learn as you go. It was kind of like jump off the cliff and then build your parachute. So it was a fun experience.
So speaking of learn as you go, then, so like I said, you've grown this organically. You've moved a lot of buildings. It's expanded. It sounds like growth has been a continuum for you throughout the whole 12, 13 years. So what's
Yeah.
been some of the biggest learnings for you then during that journey as a business owner?
Well, of course, the pandemic was a huge, it just plateaued everything. And for me, that was definitely we have to pivot. Like, we are forced to pivot at this point in order for us to stay relevant. And so the morning that it happened, March 13th, 2020, my kids got that phone call that every person got, from their school saying, "Oh, your kids aren't coming to school today." And I'm sitting in my robe with my coffee and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my children? And then I was thinking, well, of course the studio would be slammed if we were allowed to be open, but nobody's allowed to be open. And so I said, oh, okay, we need to offer something for these parents because they're all in the same position I'm in. And so I immediately went and created a jot form, and it said, what supplies do you want? What's your address? Here's the price. I created a payment button, and within an hour, I had sent it out to all 5,000 contacts. And the result was just, they came in like I kind of exploded. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's not quite what I meant. And so it kept my staff busy. They ended up becoming drivers, and my staffs, we had one person in the studio alone so that there was no contact. I had me at my house kind of conducting everything. We had people filling orders, and then we had the staffers as drivers. And so that not only was a huge learning experience, number one, but number two, pivoting. You really need to be able to pivot your business no matter what happens. And make it happen, and number two, that kind of evolved into this relationship with DoorDash, which I never would have envisioned prior to the pandemic, and so now DoorDash delivers our supplies locally for the studio.
What a great story. I mean, we all know how many businesses didn't make it through the pandemic, especially those that were absolutely impossible to do virtually. And, you took that and, like you said, pivoted it into a whole nother really market, right? Instead of the customer coming to you, you took your products to the customer, right? So now, and now you have that demand channel still in place today, right? So through
That's
that
right.
process, not only did you survive, but you actually grew your business through a different go-to-market strategy, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love it. So what's the next 5 years look like, Joanna? So you got 12, 13 behind you. You've had a pivot in there. You've had a lot of store changes.
Yeah.
What's the next 5-year goal? What's the aspiration?
Yeah, so it's very exciting. Right off the bat, I would say year 3 or 4, we started getting people asking about franchising. And at the time, my kids were aged 3 and 4 because they were babies when I started. And so I was just not ready yet. I said, I need to focus on my kids right now. And they were my number one priority. But now they're teenagers. Now my oldest 2 are 13 and 14. My youngest is 10. And so I'm able to put in the time. And so the past couple of years, we've been putting together our FDD operations manual, talking to different people, and we're ready to take the next step for franchising. So right now we're starting our franchising campaign. And hopefully within the next year or 2, we'll have a couple of studios in North Atlanta. We have some people who are interested in Johns Creek, Kennesaw, that kind of area. And then from there, we're hoping to become a national brand.
That is really exciting. Well done.
Yeah.
That's exciting
Thank
stuff.
you.
That is great.
Very exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. I've talked to several people who who really could franchise but they just don't take that step because it is a lot of work, and you have to be organized, and there's a lot of different venues that most business owners haven't traveled down before. So that's great. So fantastic. Yeah. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So you have a lot of, so are most of your staff permanent staff, temporary staff, part-time, flexible? I'm just curious. I'm gonna ask you a question about employment. So what's your staff look like?
Yeah, so right now, during the school year, we usually have between 8 and 10 staffers, and they're all pretty much high school and college students. So we want that flexibility for them. And they're usually, they're super fun. They're looking for just part-time work. They're working with kids all day. It's a great environment for them. And one of the perks of being a staff member is you have a key to the studio. So after the studio closes, a lot of the staff will even go in as a group and do study time or study for exams or just have a little art therapy. So that's super neat. But during the summer, we almost double our staff because we have summer camps and we're just that slammed. So we'll go from about 8 to about 13, 14 staffers on call for that.
Okay. So what, I know I've heard other people when they work with high school students or college students, and you especially working in the children's market, there's probably some unique rules and things there. So maybe just share with the listeners any unique challenges that you've had, or ways that you've overcome retention or recurring employment in the area.
Yeah, so we actually don't have a huge turnover at the studio. There's been some things that I've put into place. Number one is just making sure you don't just hire out of desperation. That is our number one rule. I am willing to grab those shifts and wait for the right staffer to come along. Because once you hire that person, that is a huge commitment for many, even years. I mean, our longest staffer's been there for 8 years, I think. And so it's critical that you do the research, you take the time to really select your staff members who are going to meet the job. I mean, that's just critical. And then number two, because our staffers are high schoolers, some of these have never had a job before. Some of the staffers haven't had that experience. And so our training program really has to be top notch because not only are we teaching them about the studio and about the business and how to run it, but you're also teaching them how to be a good employee, just those fundamentals we are teaching them. So we're kind of taking on a little bit more responsibility than I think your average company because of these kids are coming in and we're setting the groundwork. So.
Yeah, that's excellent. And plus, like I said, it's probably a little more sensitive to your point about hiring the right person. You're
Yes.
dealing with a lot of people's children, right? And the sensitivity for the parents is always super high, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So as you know, I'm a business coach, so I have to ask this question. Who's been your best coach in life and why? And it doesn't have to be business, but any sort of coaching, whether it was formal or informal, and why?
Yeah, I would have to probably say my dad. He's an entrepreneur as well. And we have a very similar kind of background in that his, degree is in marketing, mine's in marketing. He started his own company and his own business. And I did the same. And so he was able to coach me along, and him and, just having that somebody who wasn't here locally, he's based in New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans. And, he was able to, because he's away from it, he's not right here in it. He's able to give an outsider point of view, like, oh, well, how's the school system set up there? Maybe you can, really advertise to the school systems, or, just little stuff like that. I'm always picking his brain probably once a week. Well, how should we pivot now? Or what should we do that's different? And he's great for just thinking outside the box. And I think everybody needs one of those people in their corner.
Yeah, I do often get that answer to that question, being the father, but in your case, it's super good because he's also an entrepreneur. So he has real life experience, right? Which is
absolutely
double great. Yeah. So you are a lot closer to your 18-year-old self than I am. That's a fact. So this will be an easier question than if you asked it to me. But so you got a time machine. We put you in a time machine, and you zoom back to when you were 18 years old. What sort of advice would you give the 18-year-old Joanna to for whatever reason, to better her future, to prepare her, etc.?
Yeah, I think it's especially when I was first starting out the business, I was in, my 20s, and I think it's okay to do things differently. That's okay. When I was, like I said, my degree is business, and you read all these business books, and my dad gifted me with the Tools of the Titans, this huge book that I would read through, and I tried to implement everything, like, oh, I should be waking up at 4 a.m. Oh, I should be, working 40 hours, in 3 days, or, these, if they're doing it, that's what I should do. And that almost can be a little dangerous. You got to be careful doing that, because what's obviously working for those people may or may not work for me, and implementing those into my situation, it was just too much. And so I had to really kind of step back and be like, whoa, like, that's great that worked for them, but for me, what do I need? I need to put myself first. I need to think about my situation. I'm going to guess that they probably weren't, moms of 3 toddlers at the same time. Like, so maybe I just need to do what's best for me, And so, there was a lot of guilt in that at first, I think too, like, oh, I should be doing, you start shoulding on yourself, right? Like, oh, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or, these guys are doing it this way. And, but at the end of the day, it's just, you have to end up doing it your way and do what's best for you.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I mean, we have a saying that you can't out earn your learning, but not all learning is necessarily implementable, right? We're all in different stages of life, like you said.
That's right.
So it's all about getting, biting off those bite-sized chunks that you can manage and focus on, and then move on to the next thing, because you just can't manage that many balls sometimes, right? So
that's right.
Yeah, super. Well, this has been a great interview, Joanna. It sounds like you're blowing and going and growing the business and expanding and going to the new frontiers was exciting. So just want to give you the last opportunity to maybe share with the viewers that might want to learn more, want to get in contact with you, want to visit your locations, etc. So the floor is yours. Make sure anyone and everyone can contact Joanna at Splatterdash.
Yeah, so I would say if you haven't been to the studio, our studio is located in Peachtree City, right next to Target, in the Kedron Shopping Center, and we're open 6 days a week to just come on in. And so if you got kids or just need something different to do, you can head on over there. You don't have to make a reservation. And then, of course, if you're in the business realm and you're looking for a career change, we are starting to franchise, and it's a super awesome, fun business and lots of rewards, and every day is different and exciting, especially when you're dealing with children. So we encourage you to just visit splatterdash.com, and it has all the franchise information there as well.
Super duper. Well, Joanna, again, well done. Great to meet you. And
Thank you.
I wish you nothing but success in the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Good day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.